Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds for Sports. I'm about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a surgical victory by the number one team in the Eastern Conference. If that's a measuring stick game, and it sure looks like one to me, that's a team that's showing you kind of where their standard is. A standard that, much like the Winnipeg Jets last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been able to replicate that standard over and over and over again. They do so on this night. I thought the Jets played a good game. I thought their effort was right. You take a look at this, and there's a reason one team is where they are, and there's a reason where the other team is where they are. And I'll go back to the last game and why, we always get those comments, during a game like that, if we're not kind of celebrating from the rooftops that the Winnipeg Jets won a game. My take on that last game, I think it was a little bit harsher than Ken's, but what I saw was you can expect in a game, you can expect that a team is going to have breakdowns and that you're going to capitalize on another team having breakdowns. So last game, when we talked about the Jets and the four off the rush goals that they had against a team that was trying to limit off the rush goals, and we talked about the breakdowns that happened one after the other on all of those goals that the Jets scored last game. And sometimes a team's going to break down. You got to be a team that can capitalize on that, right? You got to be able to be a team that's ready to go and ready to capitalize on mistakes. And the Winnipeg Jets were that last game, and they did over and over again to the tune of getting 4 goals. Now, a whole bunch of people got excited about that. And I get that you get excited when the offense hasn't been coming. And a lot of people take a look at that and they see the results and they think to themselves, okay, here come the Jets. Here's that offense. Where's that offense been this whole time? The reason you get the reaction that you got from me last game is I'm seeing that the Winnipeg Jets are capitalizing on mistakes, unforced mistakes often in that game over and over again. And that's where they get those 4 goals from. You hear us talk about it all the time in this show. Is it repeatable? Can you expect that now the next night you're going to walk into Tampa and Tampa's going to blow it 4 times in that game and give the Jets gift odd man rushes for them to score off of? And the answer to that is obviously no. That a game like that you had against the New Jersey Devils, that's a team that was not on board, was not ready to play, and the Jets capitalized on them. The Jets are very good at capitalizing on that. There you go. But now you've got to find a way the next night to find a way to win, and you've got to be able to generate. And therein lies the problem for me, as we've seen with the Winnipeg Jets as of late, is that I take a look at a team that just does not have a lot of ways to generate offense. So the one goal they get here tonight, it's that low to high, up to the defenseman, shoot it, get a guy in the shooting lane, tip the puck, get it behind the goaltender, and you get a goal, right? The Jets have shown that's the kind of offense. We talked about it for quite a bit in the last show about how the Jets we're getting a lot of offense like that, and then it started to dry up. Why? Because Jet teams start taking a look at the tape and they see this is how the Winnipeg Jets are generating our offense. We need to find a way to stop that. So they start fronting the puck. They have their defensemen facing up ice so that they block the shot and turn it up ice. And that way it's actually a quick pressure valve release. You get up ice, you get out of your own zone kind of thing. So you have to have, and we've talked about it, you have to have other ways to generate and to score goals. And I think tonight's game is just an example that the Jets just don't have enough of those. And you're playing a game against a team that knows how to do that. That's a team that can generate offense, with skill. It's going to capitalize on mistakes, like the mistake that was made on the first goal of the game. I believe it's Cole Perfetti's man he's not on top of and skates wide in, and boom, it's in the back of the net. But that's what the Jets had last year. We've spoken about it ad nauseum, but we went over it last show. You can go back and look at the last show if you want to talk about all the different ways that they could create that offense. But for me, this is where I find the Winnipeg Jets at this stage. If I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff and I'm looking at this team, you have to ask yourself, in a measuring stick game against a really good team that's may just end up being the number 1 seed in the East, this is what that game looked like. Like, this is that to me. I didn't think that the Tampa Bay Lightning were anywhere near at the top of their game. But what it reminded me of was the Winnipeg Jets last year, who had a style of game that they didn't need to be at their very best, and they'd still very likely beat you because they've got this winning formula. And that's what I saw from Tampa Bay. And I just don't see a Jets team that's able to generate enough offense to hang with a team like that. So, one, I don't think it's going to be an issue in the first place, because you know how I feel about this. The Winnipeg Jets, I told you way back on the new year, the Jets aren't making the playoffs. I'm still saying that. I'm saying it from the rooftop because the numbers tell us we can't expect them to. They went 700 in their last block, and it looks like the San Jose Sharks are on their way to winning tonight. If they do, or the Seattle Kraken, if they do, what that means is the Jets have made up just 1 point in the standings. And if the Sharks win tonight, they have a game in hand, which means they actually may have gone negative. They may be going backwards compared to where they were at game 42. It's just too hard to do. And even if the 700 win percentage that I talked about was enough, which it hadn't been this last 10 games, now you've lost one game, which means the Jets basically, to reach that 700 number, have to win 7 of their next 9 games now in order to achieve that number. So it's such a hard number to stay on top of. It gets difficult. I talked about the degree of difficulty, the amount of players or teams out of the playoffs that they had played before this. Now they're playing a stretch of teams in, all those kind of difficulties. But for me, this is the issue. If I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, I take a look at my team and I say, my team doesn't have enough ways to generate offense to win games. I've got a great goaltender. We still play a fairly good defensive game when we put everything together. They've been doing it more so lately, low scoring games for the most part, or not allowing other teams to score a lot. Tonight's a 3-1 game essentially against a really good team. So they've got that element in there, but this team is not going anywhere. And if it did go anywhere, which it's not going to, they can't generate enough offense to score. And to me, that's all the writing on the wall that I need if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, to know what I'm going to do with this team. And maybe he's there already. Maybe he's got a very definitive plan. Again, if I can go over quickly what I think that he's going to do, I think he's going to move some assets that he doesn't feel he's going to be able to hold on to. Players like Logan Stanley, who I told you a long time ago I thought was gone. Luke Schen's probably gone. Maybe move on guys from guys like Nemestikov and Niederreiter, but with a plan to maybe try and capture assets and bring guys in, because I think what Kevin Cheveldayoff, if he looks at it like this and sees it the same way as I do and sees that this team isn't able to generate, but is believing in this team and that there's still a bit of a foundation there, well, maybe you use this time coming up towards the trade deadline to try and bring in long-term assets, and you do that by moving out the guys you're going to lose. So rather than moving Stanley for futures, or maybe move Stanley for futures and use those same kind of picks to bring guys in. We heard the name Vincent Trocheck come up. I'm not saying it's the right strategy. I'm going to get into, I've got a real kind of bombshell that I want to drop with about 20 games left, or maybe right around the trade deadline, of where I think that this team could really make a splash and really alter its future. But Kevin Cheveldayoff believes in this team, so I see him trying to bring guys in. So I could see him moving Logan Stanley for a certain amount of picks and then using those picks to go get someone that they could lock down long-term. So because I think the planning stage for Kevin Cheveldayoff has now started to move to next year, but I don't think he's given up on next year. So I think this is my way of kind of trying to prepare the audience and saying, anyone out there who thinks that the Jets are looking at this and saying, okay, time to tear down and bring it back, you can't do that, because tearing it down, you can't tear it down to the studs. He still believes in the likes of Scheifele, Connor, Josh Morrissey, go on, Hart Trophy goaltender, all of those kind of things. You got to find ways to bring guys in. One of those opportunities is at the trade deadline. I think I see the Winnipeg Jets jettisoning assets they think they would lose, but still trying to take a swing and bring something in to try and fix for next year. But I don't know what other people saw out there, but to me, like, this isn't a disastrous game. The Jets played well. It's no reason to look at this team and say, let's give up on this team. I'm not talking about it being like the Vancouver Canucks, but the numbers are stacked against you. You don't have the horses to get there. To me, it's obvious. There has to be a strategy in place for the Winnipeg Jets to start focusing on the future, because the now, to me, this is a very, very strong indicator in this game that the now is not a now that ends with the Winnipeg Jets going to the playoffs. playoffs. That's my take on the whole thing. Time now, though, to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. And my friend, I hear it's cold down there, yet you're looking red hot in that suit. It's back to the old kind of Hitman look you got going on. They did a video game, and you look like you're on the cover of that video game, old PlayStation Hitman game. That was great stuff. Of course, you got the looks that kill, Ken, because of course you went down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. You should do the same, folks, if you want those looks that kill. Walk in, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, you take it away on that game tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. Fun to be with you.
You're welcome.
On a beautiful evening in Tampa. I mean, it was...
Ken, you strike me as the kind of guy who knocks on the door to his own home before he goes in.
Just like to see if it's safe to come in. Yes. Exactly.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. Do you mind if I use my key here? I think you nailed it. I mean, I don't think this was I don't think the Jets necessarily lacked urgency in this game, but they were the second best team, and that's not a surprise given the fact that the Lightning are now 16-1-1 in the last 18 games. They played like a team that is one of the best teams in the NHL. Scott O'Neill saying in the morning that he thought that this is the second best team in the National Hockey League. He said, Colorado obviously earned it with the fast start, similar to the Jets last year. But right now they played the hottest team in the NHL, and they didn't measure up. I mean, it wasn't that it was for lack of effort. I mean, I just think that they played a more talented team, a team that is right now way better at playing its system. And, after a pretty decent first period, Sean, the Jets just didn't have a lot of counter punches available to them in terms of generating enough offense to get into that game. One really good low to high play, as you mentioned, really good shot by Sandberg, nice tip by Kyle Connor. But I asked Scott O'Neill after the game, Sean, if he thought that was the Jets not going to the hard areas enough or something that their opponent took away from them. And he said it comes down to will and compete, and you have to want to get to those areas. And in this game, the Lightning got to those areas far more often, and the Jets didn't. And when the Jets got there, they paid a price, and they were willing to pay a price at the other end of the ice. So for me, I mean, it's not a surprising result given where the teams are in the standings. Again, I wouldn't say this was a demoralizing loss, but again, the Jets did too many things that used to be uncharacteristic in their game in terms of puck protection, puck management, and the Lightning are a team that they'll burn you in transition, much like the Jets made the Devils pay. I mean, I know you referenced it. The Jets made the Devils pay on mistakes, and guess what? That's exactly what the Lightning did right back to them in this game. I thought that Darren Radish, I mean, he's a guy who's having an awesome year, Sean. More points than Josh Morrissey, which is a massive surprise. Yeah. And again, solid player last year, but with Victor Hedman out, he's been exceptional. 3 points tonight moves him to 45 for the year, right? I mean, that's 47 for the year. That's just a ridiculous number from a guy who not a lot of people know who they are, Sean. And, we're both sports fans, and Major League is a pretty famous sporting movie. And honestly, I'm going to tell you this. You and I have been in that room a lot over the years. I had one of those Doc Brown moments when I walked through the room and I'm looking at the name bars in that locker room. Who are these guys? There's an element of that to the Lightning.
Yeah.
Yep, there's still a bunch of guys you recognize, star players, Hart Trophy guys like Kucherov, like Vasilevsky, Olympians, a bunch of Olympians, but their support players are guys that have come up through their system or have been brought in from other places and have done an exceptional job of buying into the culture. John Cooper's done a tremendous job. Their minor league system continues to feed players. It's incredible to watch. And for a lot of the things that we've talked about all year, Sean, lack of secondary scoring, lack of speed, lack of forecheck, the guys that have come up in the system with the Lightning in the last couple of years here are doing a lot of the things that the Jets are lacking, right? Speed, attacking, forecheck, all of those things from guys that are not household names. And, again, maybe they're going to be household names eventually, but I was incredibly impressed by, guys like Dominic James and, Gage Gonclaves had a great scoring chance, ripped it wide, but these guys play incredibly hard. And again, we talked about Morgan Geekie a lot this year. I had a good chat with Jack Finley this morning, Sean, a one-time member of the Winnipeg Ice. It was Connor Geekie's roommate.
Yeah.
Geekie having an outstanding year down in the minors, 11 goals, 35 points in 35 games. So the point is the Lightning have more prospects coming.
More coming. They're
marinating. They've got guys that are going. And anyways, in terms of the Jets, there's not a ton of, it wasn't a template game for them, but this was a game where a lot of their deficiencies were on display. No secondary scoring. Blender comes out in the third. It didn't really generate a whole lot of action from any of the lines. The Lightning did an exceptional job of shutting down. Yes, Kyle Connor gets a goal, but that line was not overly dangerous in the game, I don't think. I think you would agree. And again, we've been talking about this a lot, and we talk about it because it's prevalent when the guy who's injured is in the building. With Braden Point, his availability for the Olympics being up in the air, this was a game where Mark Scheifele needed to shine against the Lightning, and he didn't have a particularly. Again, I think the effort was there, but he didn't have a show me game where he said, "John Cooper, you have no choice but to take me on the team."
The one thing that I kind of get concerned about when it comes to what I'm seeing from the Jets lately, and someone had brought it up, and I know there's someone who thinks I bring up Snake Charmer every show, even though I haven't brought it up for years.
Now you should, though. Now it's like thanks for having me.
Yeah. The kind of scoring that we saw in the last game, right? There's a little bit of a snake charmer to that, right? Like the weaving, the cutting, all those kind of things, hypnotizing your opponent there. And believe me, I don't mind that popping up every once in a while. And it's very, very effective for capitalizing on teams that make mistakes like you saw in that game. The one thing that I've got a little bit of concerns with is that top line now, as the Jets have struggled. And now what is it, Ken? They've lost, 5 of their last 7 games, I think it is now.
I think so. Yep. 5 of 7. Yep. They were 1-2-2, and
like never mind. My opening, and I talked about Kevin Cheveldayoff. Like, if you're not just simply looking at this team and being like, yeah, I like the way they're playing more. I still believe in this team. I think there's a foundation there, but we've lost 5 of 7. We need to be closing the gap, and we're losing 5 of 7 after we won 4 straight, coming off 11 straight losses. Like, it's right there. This isn't hard. The clues, this isn't one. We're not playing the game of Clue. We're not, is it did Butler do it with the candlestick kind of stuff here? It's right in front of our faces. They've lost 5 of, or whatever I just said it was, 5 of their last 7 games. That's enough as it is. But what I get a little concerned about is it's starting to feel to me like the only games in which the Jets offense starts showing up is soft offense games, right? Like the kind of concern that I had in years past about the Jets being an overall snake charmer team, the kind of concerns that I had over Cole Perfetti early last year at times. Like when you're starting to be that team that shows up and beats the pants off of a team like the the New Jersey Devils last game. And I guess they didn't beat the pants off of them. It was 4-3, but you start generating offense.
Yeah.
But when it's always easy offense, that's problematic, right? And the one thing about the Jets that was so easy to rave about them last year, I remember someone last year at some point sent me a message and was like, "You're never hard on the Jets anymore." And it's like, they're winning the President's Trophy. They're doing all of the things right. Like it was never about being hard on the Jets, and it's about trying to suggest the right things that need to be done for a team to succeed, right? And that's just the one thing that I wonder right now is it's starting to feel in this last 5 of 7 block that line goes off enough, and Mark Scheifele goes off enough, and Kyle Connor goes off enough that the points are there. So it's hard to look at them and be like, well, God, they've got 11 points in their last 9 games. What do you want from the guys, right? But I guess what I worry about with the DNA that exists from a long time ago with this team is towards the end of the season when things aren't like when it's starting to become blatantly obvious that this team's not going to the playoffs, I wonder if they start leaning into that a little more, because it feels like that's happened a little bit more now, that when it's points night, those guys go off. But on a night like tonight, to your point, Ken, this isn't a night that Mark Scheifele can go to sleep. When Mark Scheifele is still auditioning to be the understudy of the person in the play, that if they get laryngitis the night of the big show, that he's got to be able to step in and deliver the lines. It's not a night you can be looking for soft offense. It's the kind of night you have to look like you're going to the net and there's 3 guys hanging off your back. And yeah, you may get held off the score sheet, but man, oh man, did he make our life miserable. Man, oh man, did he make our life hard. And I think you make a really, really good point there, Ken, in the idea that doing that in front of John Cooper, not exactly the best look. Good enough, I'd say, for a pristine roofing wake-up call on this night. You know what that means. Just you'll pop back with your point that you got to make here, Ken. But first, just want to give let you know that because it's the pristine roofing wake up call, time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the pristine roofing and siding wake up call. You will be glad that you did. Ken, you had something to say before I so rudely interrupted you.
No, not at all. No, I was just finishing off the point. I mean, no shots on net, no shot attempts for Mark. And I mean, we know he's a gifted passer, but he's at his best when he is getting scoring chances himself also. I just thought that was, it was a challenge too. And Sean, it's the second year in a row. Last year, the Jets rolled in here through Tampa. I was here also. And it was the time when he was dealing with whatever he was dealing with his hand injury, wasn't taking faceoffs, and he had a tough game in front of Cooper and Brisebois on that night as well. So again, it's not drawing some wild conclusion. I'm just saying that for all of the times where we've been saying how can Mark Scheifele not be on the Olympic team? We know it's not just a small sample size equation, right? But sometimes when you aren't playing well in front of one of the decision makers, sometimes some of those things get stuck in those people's minds, and that's what happens. I mean, it's just it's unfortunate timing for him, but that's the reality of the last 2 years.
And you know what I'd say, Ken, a lot of people are going to say that that's unfair. And to a degree, maybe it is, Connor McDavid is not going to get kicked off the team if he has a bad game in Tampa one night, but that's the position Mark Scheifele is in, and it's not by accident. It's kind of the design that he's created for himself over the years. Some of the times that hey, remember, folks, it's not long ago there was a massive amount of people in this fan base that wanted Mark Scheifele gone. We had to warn you on this podcast what you'd be giving up on, and now you're clearly seeing it, a top 10 scoring player in the NHL. But your sentiment and your feelings about wanting him gone came from a place that the hockey world looked at and understood that was something that was held against Mark Scheifele. So is it unfair? Maybe it's a little bit unfair, but he's kind of playing the cards that he's been dealt, and he's been playing for a really long time. And a lot of it is his own doing. So it's like, if you wanted to be ironclad, because I hear this all the time, we see it in our chat room, I hear it when I talk with people, I hear national media saying it all the time, they kind of scoffing like, oh, and this guy made it over Mark Scheifele on the Team Canada team. Well, it's nights like this that the people in the know look at and they're saying, like, I don't really care if you're sitting on your couch and scoffing at me that Mark Scheifele is not on the team, because I need him to come in and show me in these moments, like, this is what special players do. And this is a team and an event for special players. And I'm not saying Mark Scheifele isn't special, but what I am saying is he's put himself in a position where it's nights like tonight that he would need to go off to create that little bit of a spark in the mind of the guy who's going to be in charge of who comes in and out of the lineup.
No, exactly. And that, again, this is probably one of those days where, Anthony Cirelli does a bunch of little things that John Cooper wants to see in Italy, right? I mean, I think it's not like he went and had a crazy go off game, but he did a good job of protecting his own zone and had a solid outing. Brandon Hagel, you noticed him out there. So again, this is not a, we're not flip flopping and saying Mark shouldn't be on the team, but Sean, to your point, his margin for error is very slim, and not playing well against one of the decision makers is part of the reason for some of the choices that were made. At least that's what we have to interpret, because, at the time of the announcement, Doug Armstrong didn't want to talk about the players that didn't make it, but we have to go by what we're seeing. And what we're seeing is that happened in each of the last 2 years. It's unfortunate timing for Mark, because like I said, his body of work is still exceptional, but when the margin for error is so slim, and when you're basically auditioning for, very few spots in the skilled position category, you have to do something to separate yourself from some of the others. And, today was one of the nights where he had a quiet evening. Those have been very rare for Mark, which is a testament to him. He's got 64 points this year. That's a very high number.
Yeah. I'm ready to hand out the Flame and Comfort hot take, the good kind of hot take on this night here. And Neil Dubek says to Tracy Okranik, Leafs are talking rebuilds. Flames are in the middle of a rebuild. Habs just finished their rebuild. Utah is in the playoffs currently. All rebuilding or rebuilt. That's how it works. I like this comment, and here's the reason I like it. I understand, and every time we talk about this, we don't have at stake what Mark Chipman has at stake. Mark Chipman needs to worry that if a rebuild takes too long, or if it never gets off the ground, if it Buffalo Sabres or Edmonton Oilers and goes like a decade long, it's he who has to, come up with the money from the potentially empty seats, right? But all that said, the idea of kind of just ruling out a rebuild because other rebuilds has failed is entirely ignoring the idea that, but other rebuilds have succeeded. I mean, the Florida Panthers are the example of one. The Edmonton Oilers are the example of one. You go over and over and over again, and I understand that the Winnipeg Jets wanted to be a team like, I guess, the Dallas Stars would maybe
Detroit
be a good example.
Time, like 25 years in the playoffs.
But I mean, look where that ended up taking Detroit.
Sure.
Detroit is now maybe coming back. Detroit's an example of like the Buffalo Sabres happening not because they purposely tore down, because you held on to an aging core so long that you basically had to build from once you fell below the playoff line and hit rock bottom and then start, right? Hey,
well, and that's Chicago, Sean. That's Chicago, right?
After exactly.
The 3 cups. I mean,
exactly. It's one thing to say we're going to rebuild, tear down, and build back up. It's another thing to slowly crash into the side of the mountain, because all that slowly descending time takes time as well, and you probably end up in the same spot. So I think Neil Dubek makes a really good point here in that I don't think rebuild is necessarily a bad word, because some teams have rebuilt and it didn't work out well, because almost every successful team outside of the Boston Bruins, who did it for years and years and years, almost every successful team is the result of a rebuild, or of a team saying, you know what, we got to get bad before we get good. So this is a great comment by Neil Dubek, and a very, very worthy winner of our Flame and Comfort hot take of the show, brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. You'll find it will be one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside, folks. You can visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of it for you. Ken, I can see by your starred comments here that you are interested in talking about Elias Salomonsson. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, it was, again, this isn't just, we sometimes promote our work, and I did a story today about Dylan Sandberg and his recent strong play, also including the mentorship role with Elias Salomonsson, who recently wants to change the pronunciation of his name, and we're going to do our best to get it right.
Yeah.
But Salomonsson, again, just steady Eddie. I really like how those two are playing off one another. We know there have been comparisons made by other people and people like ourselves in terms of the skill sets they bring to the table. And I think that his confidence is just absolutely shooting through the roof. Even in a game like today, where some of his shifts are against Kucherov, who's having just a ridiculous season, 82 points. We talk about how great a year Mark is having, Sean. Kucherov he's 19 more points than him, which is absurd when you consider how many players have been out of their lineup. But Salomonsson just continues to grow in confidence. Again, we talk about receipts all the time. Go back however long you want to say. You need to give Salomonsson games. So if that means making a trade with one of the right shot D, then that trade needs to be made, because Salomonsson should stay up and be an NHLer for the rest of the year, Sean. He deserves to stay up. He needs this additional action to get him ready for next year when he is a consistent top 4 defenseman. And if he's got, that's 10 games now with 29 left. If he can get a bunch more, if he can get close to 35 plus or 30 plus, whatever the number is going to be, in a perfect world, 39 more or 39 total, that will only help him solidify his stature as a top 4 defenseman, because we talked about it. This is just Dylan Sandberg's second year as a second pairing defenseman, and he has a ceiling to go up and be a top pair guy in a shutdown kind of role. So for me, I think he's doing a great job with his feet. I like how he's activating. I think you're seeing some great chemistry with the two of them. And again, I don't know how the shakes down, and there'll be some temptation to try Salomonsson with Josh Morrissey also as an alternative or as an option. However way they sort it out, moving somebody out to get Salomonsson more minutes when Neil Pionk is healthy, to me is a have to do it situation. In terms of, you were talking about what Kevin Cheveldayoff needs to do. He needs to clear some room on the right-hand side, or be willing to have one of his experienced guys be sitting out. And if that's the case, then you may as well move one or two of those guys out in order to try to get some assets back.
Just to kind of get my, I don't have a lot to say. Add on Elias Salomonsson. I thought like tonight was a night where he just showed once again that he belonged. That's what I'm seeing over and over again. I had a quick conversation with some of the coaches just about how kind of wow-inducing his backward skating lateral movement is, Ken.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who, if you're trying to beat him wide, like I'm just going to say this, I'm going to make a claim, and you can hold up that claim to ridicule or not you, but like the Jets hockey fan universe. But this is a guy I don't think is going to get beat on the outside very often in his career, because I've seen him do it a couple times where I think, oh man, he's out of position. He's too much in the middle of the ice, and then all of a sudden he does this. It's you remember guys like Rob Blake and Chris Pronger used to do it, where they'd all of a sudden do this sharp cut, and it was almost like a loop towards the boards as they were backward skating, and in this one smooth motion, they would just be on the boards and they'd close on the guy, right? They'd have this closing speed. Salomonsson doesn't have that same huge big man loop to it, but he's got this kind of like machine gun fire cut, chop, 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 and boom, he's there in no time. And it's so strong to have that, because you can basically take a player like that and you can overload the one side of the ice, and it helps you pressure the puck and turn pucks over and have the puck never get to a different spot. But if it does get there, his closing speed is so solid that you basically get to cheat. It's a bit of a cheat code that you get to go and defend this side of the ice. And then when you have to defend this side of the ice, most guys by that point are caught and are in a bad spot, and the guy blows by him. And Salomonsson can close like that. that's something I take a look, and there's not a lot of defensemen in the game that have that, period. Never mind on the Jets roster. So the more things I see, like, put it this way, I've been an advocate of this in the past. You were just talking about it with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Morgan Geekie being down and playing in the minors. Sorry, Connor being down and playing in the minors. That's a good thing, right? Like, that's a player who's the player a year younger than him. Zach Benson got drafted and was in the NHL at 18. He's doing his thing, and however that goes, there's all kinds of different paths. But Connor going down there and dominating probably means, in my mind, at some point he's either going to come up and be a player that really helps that Tampa team, or another thing that they do really good, since people are comparing the scouting staffs of the Winnipeg Jets and the Tampa Bay Lightning, one of the things that Tampa does really good is they're not afraid to move on from their assets when they have them, to try and go get something that they think they need now, right? But it's never like they've got Connor Geekie because they moved Sergachev, right? So they've got this now, but I know from what we know from the Tampa Bay Lightning that they wouldn't be afraid to move Connor Geekie if they think it's going to help them now, because they're taking those assets and they're using them. There is very little, if any, dying on the vine happening in the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. In fact, they're just building guys up, showcasing them, and then moving them or building them up and bringing them in one way or another. They're churning guys out and bringing them up, doing a really, really good job of that. I go back to Elias Salomonsson saying the whole idea of it was, I know in the past I've suggested they should send the player down. I've done that with other players. I had no problem with Salomonsson going back to the minors earlier on this year. A lot of people would take that, Ken, as you and I being some of these guys who are like anti-young guys. I'm not anti-young guy. I want to make sure that the young guy gets the best shot to come in. And what I saw that last time was Elias Salomonsson do a very good first showing in the NHL, and then get to a point where he was starting to get caught a little bit here, a little bit here. And what I liked about the timing of them sending him down was I think they got him out of there before maybe some things could start piling up, and then he could maybe start feeling negative about his game, or having the thought creep in that maybe I'm not at this level. Maybe I'm not here. I don't know if some people saw the quote, but Cole Caulfield said a couple years ago, Ken, this was after he tore it up in the playoffs when they went to the Cup final, and he was asking himself if he belonged in the league. And then Marty St. Louis came in and changed things around for him or whatever. But this is just an example that you just sit there at home. We do, all of us do, and we take a look at a player and we say, okay, get in and now go. And you're forgetting it's a human being who's got confidence issues and psychological things going on, and playing injured, and suddenly their game's not as much, whatever. I thought the Jets handled it well, because I thought they brought up Salomonsson long enough to give him a taste, long enough for him to feel like he got his feet underneath him, then sent them back down, said, go back down and dominate a little bit more. But now that they've brought him up, I've said it before, I'm right back there again. I'm at the place now where even if he hits some rough patches and makes some mistakes, it's time for him to do the rest of his learning on the fly. Agreed. In the NHL. There's no reason to send this player back anymore. Decisions being made towards the trade deadline should be made in a manner to open up space for Elias Salomonsson to be a full-time player in the NHL. And listen, with the Jets not going to the playoffs this year, it's the perfect time to have a player coming in and making mistakes on the fly. If he makes mistakes, I don't see a lot of them right now, but if they do happen, it's not like it's happening with a team that is like that mistake is going to cost them the playoffs that year. Oh my goodness, that cost us 2 points, and we ended up being Calgary. We tied, but we lost on ROW or something like that and didn't make the playoffs. It's the perfect opportunity for Elias Salomonsson to get going here at the NHL level and be a guy who's now locked in and there. We heard from Logan Stanley about what it kind of felt like for him to get locked in and be established as an NHLer. We saw it from Dylan Sandberg. Time for that to happen with Elias Salomonsson.
You bet. I mean, and this is just reinforcing what I said at the time when people were going wild that he was returned. The reason he was returned was to go back and play 22 minutes instead of 12. Get a bunch more puck touches. Now you have a taste of what the speed is like. And Sean, there was a couple hair on fire moments for him in those first couple games too, on the road in tough buildings. So this time there are no hair on fire moments. He's adapting to the speed. The game is slowing down in a good way. It doesn't mean he's slowing down. His processing is speeding up so that the game looks slower in real time. And that's been impressive. And Sean, after I've just patted myself on the back, I'll pat you on the back, because I think in week 1 of the season, you told me with authority that the Jets would not be Manitoba Miracle specialists. And not only are they not that, they are now 1-18-2 on the season when trailing after 2 periods. So this isn't a matter of getting late goals on 6-on-5. The Jets are having trouble generating anything in the third period if they're not leading the game. Again, I'm not saying the game is over, but they've literally generated 4 points this season when trailing after 2 periods. 2 with 1 regulation victory and 2 in extra time. So, I mean, that's a huge problem, Sean, for a team that doesn't score enough, either at 5-on-5, and now their power play has regressed, from first in the league to whatever they are going into today. I will double check here, but power play now 18th, so they're middle of the pack, but almost in the bottom third. Sorry, I guess it's closer to the middle of the pack than bottom third. But either way, it's not a good formula. Well, it's not a sustainable formula, that's for sure.
Ken, I'll tell you this. I missed the wide open net with a lot of my takes, but I definitely scored on that one. And hey, you folks at home, you can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game while you focus on home sweet home. Our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now that is what we call a win. Head to cambrian.nb.ca/rates for more. Or, folks, you can do what Renny did today. I was just walking around Costco and I talked with my mortgage specialist at Cambrian, who laid out all the options that we had for renewing our mortgage, or all the different kind of things that we needed to do. I just merged the call with my wife, grabbed some frozen berries. Fruit Loops were on sale. If people are looking for receipts and think I'm making it up, I was there. 2 boxes of Fruit Loops for the kids and some Rouse marinara.
Are they really for
sauce.
The kids? Are they really for the kids?
I know. Hey, listen, I'm a straight up cinnamon toast crunch guy. If I'm going to indulge in that, I want my milk to taste like cinnamon when it's all right.
Fair.
Anyways, I just wanted to say a shout out that Ken and I, like we said, we're real big believers in our sponsors. We kind of put our money where our mouth is when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I just had it was a great experience for myself and my wife. And we had the advice was great because we had a plan going into it. The plan changed and the plan was way better than we had even hoped for what it was going to be. So we're really confident. If you give the folks at Cambrian Credit Union a call or go to the website or set something up, walk into one of their locations, they're going to take care of you. Ken and I both have our mortgages with Cambrian Credit Union, and today was really helpful. So I feel very confident if anyone is reaching out to them that if you're treated the way that I was treated, you're gonna really appreciate it. Ken, can you give Sweet Lou a shout out? Speaking of people who treat people like $1 million.
Yeah, speaking of people that treat people, and we have personal experience with Lou Ferlin, my excellent realtor, has helped me with 2 great places. And if you need help with realty or needs that you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
Ken, I've had a lot of low blows taken to me on this show by the chat room over the years, but nothing as low as this from Issue Boy Bruce, who says Renny pours the milk first, then adds the cereal. This is psychopathic behavior, Issue Boy Bruce. I would never do something like this, and I resent the suggestion that I would. Unbelievable, Issue Boy Bruce. Comment here that was made that I found a little bit interesting was someone saying, and I forgot to start, someone had said about the Winnipeg Jets. There's been some conversations about the scouting staff between the comparison between the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Winnipeg Jets, Tampa hitting over and over again. The Winnipeg Jets, once upon a time, were money. Things have really And Ken, I'll say it. You and I had this conversation before when Marcel Como left as the head scout of the Winnipeg Jets amateur scouting division. I know he stayed on for the transition, but it's right around the time that he left and that transition turned over that things really slowed down for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, not as easy, like it's not as simple as that. It also coincides with a time when the Winnipeg Jets became a far better team, which means their picks came later and later and later. That's going to have an effect on
And they
things.
lost a few of those picks, so they shipped first rounders out and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. They became a team that was competing now, so they're not, they don't have as many swings at it, all those kind of things. It's not as simple as that. But I would agree with the assessment that the Winnipeg Jets cupboards are not very full. And because they're not full, someone had made the comment of we don't have the assets to retool. It's got to be a teardown and a rebuild when that decision is finally made. And I wanted your thoughts on that, Ken, because I found that to be a fascinating comment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Jets aren't going to rebuild because their core players are between 29 and 33 years old. So I still don't see that as a viable option. I mean, you touched on some of the reasons earlier in terms of what it would mean in the marketplace. And yes, some of those top, having a top 5 pick in the lineup certainly has enhanced many teams' opportunities for, success down the road. For every San Jose, there is the Buffalo model that you mentioned. So yeah, anyways, it's an interesting concept for sure. Again, Mark Hillier worked very closely with Marcel Como too before the transition happened. So I think that, we know it's not from a lack of work, but I mean, the draft is an inexact science, but the facts are the Jets have not graduated enough players, whether that's early rounders or late rounders. There are players in the system that show plenty of promise. There are players playing junior that are having great years. 2 of the Jets' best prospects on defense just won a gold medal at the World Junior. That doesn't automatically translate into NHL success, but there are players in the system who look like they could hit. Kevin He's had a couple of really good training camps. He has that element of speed that the Jets don't have in abundance, Sean. So to me, Kevin He looks like a guy, I don't know, maybe it's a middle 6 forward probably. How high an impact he has, we'll see. But the facts are the Jets don't have a lot of draft pick currency right now in either 26 or 27. And that is why it is incumbent on Kevin Cheveldayoff to recoup some of those assets. And to your point, out of the opening, those players like Logan Stanley, if he's not going to be signed, need to be moved, both for potentially picks and maybe more NHL ready prospects that are, knocking on the door for next season. So again, I think that it's pro scouting, it's amateur scouting, it's everything. I mean, the Jets need to find a few more They need to find, a college guy like Brandon Tanev. Parker Ford started the year or played plenty of games out of the gate in that kind of a role. But, when you're a team that can't attract a ton of, high end free agents on July 1, or historically haven't been able to, then you need to add on the edges. And I think someone asked in one of our mailbag questions that have come in recently, Sean, are the Jets the Jets have cap room. Would they consider taking on a bad contract for, a first or a second round draft pick? That, or what, depending on what the offer is and what the team is and all of those things, you're going to have to use a little bit. We know Kevin Cheveldayoff is looking for edges, looking for creativity. I mean, Sean, I've referenced this before. When Kevin Cheveldayoff was the GM of the Chicago Wolves, he orchestrated a loan to get Jay Bouwmeester to the Chicago Wolves from another NHL organization because Bouwmeester had never played in the playoffs at any level of his career, in junior or in pro. So he's a guy who has been creative before, but this will be one of the times where all things have to be on the table when it comes to adding a bad contract or, taking on, a player that maybe is a guy who's struggling, but maybe needs a change of scenery, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, in order to help his amateur staff have a few more hits, they're going to have more picks, because right now the cupboards aren't as fully stocked. The Jets aren't one of the top ranked systems or organizations when it comes to prospect potential. Guys like, the guys at the Athletic who scout, and some of the other guys. Again, it's not to say they're bereft of prospects, but it's not overflowing, with high end guys that are absolutely knocking and forcing their way into the lineup, like some of these Lightning guys have been. So
Yeah.
this isn't just amateur to me. It's the whole organization is going to have a few more hits, whether that's through trade or whether that's through scouting or whether that's through, a free agent. And again, we know that the Jets bought a show me player this year that didn't work out in terms of Gustav Nyquist, but you need to keep taking swings like that in order to try to, get the talent system or talent influx back up right through the system. We know what the Jets did in terms of adding minor league veterans this year, like 4A players and call up potential and guys that were supposed to provide some insulation for the young players that were turning pro. Now, even after a bit of a slow start for the Moose are having a strong season. Their development path has been aided by having experienced players there that are pushing those young players, showing them how to be professionals and helping them, make the transition to the pro game. But again, they're going to have another really good summer on those kinds of fronts. And the one thing that is not problematic, but the one thing they've done a really good job getting those players here, but not a lot of those players have got a shot at the NHL level, which again is something that veterans would be looking at and kind of wondering about moving forward. But those same veterans for next year, Sean, they know there should be more opportunity because a bunch of the guys that are here right now and are pending UFAs are not going to be back, right? So there could be more opportunity in the fall on that front, just based on the sheer numbers of the situation.
So here's something Nick Lynham says Chevy doesn't have it in him to retool. This is going to be what he'll try to do. I can tell you right now, there's no need to look into tea leaves. This is what the Winnipeg Jets are going to do. The Winnipeg Jets are going to approach this year as other teams have, and they do this all the time. They'll say, we're going to do this like this team. They've got a team that they model, and they're going to look at a team like the Boston Bruins, who were up and then down and then had a little bit of a bounce back and are having a bounce back year. And they're going to say, why not us? And we believe in this group because that's one thing that this organization has done since the very beginning, has had this massive faith in the core that has been the core of this team now for well over a decade. And they've shown endless support for that. So they are going to try to retool. Ken makes a really good point in that it's just going to have to be really creative for Kevin Cheveldayoff. Ken touched on one of the things that they've done in the past to try and add assets to the organization, because we know it's not going to happen in unrestricted free agency. The Jonathan Toews thing is basically, that's a unicorn. That situation only happens because an all-time player steps out and has something really weird happen, is coming back, trying to make it work, and comes to his hometown. That's the only reason that this happens. Otherwise, you're seeing the kind of players that they get through unrestricted free agency, guys like Cole Koepke, who's been great, but is a guy who didn't make the NHL until he was like 28, is one of those guys that is going to get tried from team to team to team if the Jets let him go at some point, and they'll bring him in as their 12th, 13th forward. That's the kind of guy you get. Tanner Pearson, those kind of guys who, are trying to stay in the league. Those are the guys the Jets are able to get through unrestricted free agency. As far as impact players, it's salary dumps. That's what they've done in the past. Maybe going and catching a guy out of university like Ken had talked about. Ken really did. I'm just trying to point out that Ken really did show the path that Kevin Cheveldayoff will try to take here, and it is what he is going to try to do. The tricky part for me is when it comes to retooling is they don't have enough of the assets to fill from within. And this is where I get a little bit, so Palmer Lane 824 says, picks mean nothing if the scouting and development teams aren't overhauled. For me, at one point, there's got to be a buck stops here, right? And Palmer Lane is saying, Palmer Lane is saying the problem is that they're not developing these players well. And I don't know that I buy that. And someone had said something about Jimmy Roy before and his role. Well, he's had that role with the Winnipeg Jets since the very beginning, and they graduated Mark Scheifele, they graduated Adam Lowry, they graduated Josh Morrissey, they graduated Patrick Laine. I guess he didn't really spend so much time there.
Hellebuck.
Jack Roslovic, Hellebuck, Comrie, Kyle Connor, like the list goes on. I don't think that he had something before and forgot it, or was actually in the way before. I know that Parmaline didn't make this comment. I was just reading from it before. The Jets have shown an ability and an investment in their players, their player personnel, like Mike Keenan. Those guys do really great job with these guys. So I don't see that as being the problem. But the buck has to stop someplace. And the one thing that I would say is to all the other people who are like, well, just bring somebody up. Someone said it when I was, giving Salomonsson his flowers earlier on. Yeah, and bring up 2 more guys and let's just do that. And it's like, here's the issue is other teams like Tampa's bringing guys up and you're just thinking they just brought some guys up and look, it was great. But what you're not seeing is the path, how we talked about perfectly before with Connor Geekie before that, where a player is tearing it up and basically showing that they are heads and shoulders above the competition at that level, and then they make their way up. And the problem with the Winnipeg Jets is they haven't had players doing that. Understand this. Kyle Connor destroyed the AHL before he came to the NHL. So did Jack Roslovic. And, so did Sammy Niku. And Sammy
Appleton.
Niku never really hit. Mason Appleton, like all the guys who came up to the Winnipeg Jets, you're thinking, well, you brought them up and look what happened. What you're not seeing is those guys destroyed the AHL and made no bones about it where they had to come from. So that's why I'm not, and I find myself quite often at odds with so many of the commentators who are just saying, just bring guys up, because to me, that's dangerous. Just bringing guys up is how you ruin confidence. It's how you bring up a guy too fast. Like, you have to get those guys ready. That's the first thing. Get those guys ready, then bring them up. So I'm always a little bit at odds with those comments. But I do think there has to be an accounting done of why the Jets are not getting those assets to do that. Did you look at the system? Is it the coaching staff down with the Manitoba Moose? Whatever's happening down there, have things changed? Has the game changed in how you develop players and develop assets and things like that? There's got to be a full accounting, because it's obvious it's not good enough. And the Winnipeg Jets aren't hitting enough. They need to be hitting more. The whole thing about Kevin Cheveldayoff at his midseason avail after game 40, where he, basically showed Chad as Lucius, held him up as one of the things that really held the Winnipeg Jets back. That's like a Band-Aid on the problem. That is like that's the dog in the burning building saying everything's fine, right? Like that. The Jets have to do better. They need to find a way, and they're not finding their way out of this situation that they're in right now if they don't find assets and to come up and get deep assets that they can use to try and rebuild the team, because right now that's what they're going to try to do. Now, again, I'm going to tease it around 20 games left. I've got a suggestion.
And I don't even know folks. I don't even know the answer to this. Sean has not shared with me.
You do.
So.
I have.
I do.
I have.
Oh,
it's extreme. It's extreme, and I think to be honest, I think it's brilliant, Ken. But it's something that choosing to wait for. But the fact of the matter is that's just going to be like a little bit of a fantasy armchair GM thing. We know what the Jets are going to do. They believe in Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor Hellebuck, Josh Morrissey, Adam Lowry. They believe in those players, and they are going to do what they need to do. Now, the question is, how much of their future assets are they going to burn in the process to try and find that, and how creative can they get, to your point of grabbing guys out of college, bringing, salary dumps from other teams, all those different kind of things. But I can tell you right now, the Winnipeg Jets are going to try and turn this around next year. They should be, though, like I said at the top of the show, of mind to start trying to do that process this year, because that's what they're choosing to do. I'm not saying they should do it, But if that's what they're going to do, they should be taking a look at this year and kind of abandoning the idea that, well, miracles happen. Doesn't mean you quit on trying to make the playoffs, but it's your job to say we're probably, like, the probabilities tell us we're not making the playoffs. So let's conduct ourselves in a way to take advantage of what happens in this moment and see if we can't do something heading forward. Anyways, Ken, that's a kind of an all-around look at the whole situation. Just like you'll get an all-around look at things, all things pharmaceutical, all things supplement needs, all things health food needs if you head on down to Myers Drugs. And we know that they've got the entire city covered off as well because they will deliver to you. So go check out the folks at Myers Drugs. Johnson Group got you covered to play of the game. Ken, what do you got?
You know what, Sean? It was in the first period. Dylan Sandberg made a really good breakup on a 2-on-1 rush by a diving play. It wasn't as impressive as the diving play the other night against the Devils, where not only did he slide, but he batted the puck out of the air with his stick. But it was a really impressive play. I don't recall which Lightning players it was, but it was the play that caught my attention. And quite frankly, the Jets didn't do a good enough job of having Connor Hellebuck covered. Like we had talked about before, this was a game where Connor Hellebuck had a lot of work. He had 33 saves, which left him over, 917 again today. So
yeah,
it was another game where he did his part and just didn't get any run support.
Yeah. Anyways, that was Ken's Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? You need to look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that was the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And that brings us to the hashtag, the keg save of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, for me, it's the Vasilevsky kick out with the left pad on Morgan Barron. Because for me, if the Jets score in the first period on a, one of the few bursts that they got off the rush, it was a partial breakaway. I thought Morgan Barron made a really good power move, but this is one of those times where Andre Vasilevsky's big frame, he went for the go gadget legs, kicked out the left pad and made the save. So for me, it sort of set the tone. And honestly, after the first period, the Jets didn't have enough quality looks for me. Morgan Barron having one on the 2-on-1 rush with Josh Morrissey that clanged off the iron. But to me, Vasilevsky kind of set the tempo of the game by making that kick save in the first period off Morgan Barron.
There you go. That's Ken's hashtag, the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what he thinks, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be at TKO Maroon. TKO Maroon, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. Ken, you got some driving to do. Anything to say before you go?
Nope, got to hit the highway. I think the parkade closes at midnight, so better hustle. Jets are skating. Jets will be skating tomorrow in Sunrise at the Fort Lauderdale at the practice rink. So interesting weekend ahead here.
Yeah,
2 more big games on this road trip. We'll see what they have in store for us.
Yeah, watch out for the snakes driving on Alligator Alley there. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. If you do appreciate the sponsors, the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnson Group, and of course the fine folks at the keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. That is it for us, and we will chat with you when Ken makes it a little further, a little deeper into the Everglades, and the Jets take on the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye, everybody.